5 goals and 3 signings since we last spoke to you. And to go with those 3 signings, we got a triple threat on episode 423. Joining myself and Mr. Ross Webber is, and I'm literally shaking as I say this, is Sim, the golden goose of the Tilehurst End. If you're watching on YouTube, he is not auditioning for Castaway 2. That's how he looks at the moment. We are. I mean, Ross, what else can we say about Sim before we let him talk?
If he's a golden goose, are we golden geese? Like, how does that work? Where do we fall on the geese register in terms of colouring? Are we platinum geese?
I prefer swans, mate. But
okay, well, you keep the swans. That's pretty Welsh, and I'll stay in the goose.
Surely. If I'm the golden, Ben is kind of like maybe the stone or the wood at best.
Right,
and Ross
right.
Is a lovely kind of maybe like a jewel.
A jewel goose, a jewel Canada's goose from northern Maine. Anyway, Ben, get us back on track. That took 10 seconds.
Yes, Sim is here, live and exclusive. When was the last time you made an appearance? Or was it the one we did live in person?
It was the one in the Bristol game, Bristol Rovers, when we all met up.
Yeah.
I think my only appearance with you guys on the pod. So thanks very much for having me, and thanks for that wonderful introduction as well. Thanks for finally inviting me on, Ben. Very good of you. Yeah, and it's nice to be on and nice to have some good news to chew over.
We the running joke, the in joke, and I'll let you into it as listeners, is that we regularly ask Sim to come on, and his response is nah, all the time.
So I just think you're doing such a good job that I don't want to mess it up too much. I'll let you take all the blame if things go wrong, and I'll steer nice and clear.
We wanted to spice it up a bit. Both myself and Ross, as you know, are plastic fans.
Right.
We don't tend to go to a lot of games. Sim is on. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but Sim is on an incredible record with not missing games. Full stop. And yeah, on a serious note, if you don't know what he does everything for the Tilehurst End, like literally everything. It's basically like a second job for him, but he loves it. Absolutely loves it. Well, we think he loves it.
We keep telling him and he keeps telling us, and it feels more and more like he's telling himself every year, but he keeps on doing it.
Yeah. I tolerate it, and particularly when it comes to editing Ben's pieces to put up on the website, it's more a matter of tolerating it than enjoying it. I do have to correct you. I did miss one game last season, actually, so I'm not on it. Someone very, very selfishly decided to have a wedding on the same day as Reading's trip to Bolton last season, so I had to do that instead. But thank you very much. It's a very kind thing to say for a change from you, Ben.
I know. Well, we're delighted to have you on episode 423. We're into pre-season now, guys. We are there. Before we do that, massive thanks, as always, to ZC Said Films. Huge thanks to the Amazons who have lent us my blood, not their blood, not my, you know what I mean, the track. We love that. It's going to be a banger for us and hopefully for them as well. I'd love to know how many more downloads they've got since we started using it on the pod. Maybe I don't know. Maybe we've helped them get big. Who knows?
Well, I've made it into my running track a little bit to kind of get myself a bit of oomph when I go around the park. Perfect song for it. So if you haven't checked it out, then
and check out the album. I keep saying this too, but the album's good. I have I think Night After Night is like my top song for July so far. It's the 8th, so but still, that's a really good one. I like that one a lot. We've been talking about like wrestling walk-up tracks recently. I'm sure Ben's thought about this many times. But there's a few wrestling walk-up tracks on the Amazon's new album. I'll say that much.
Yeah, it's a cracker of an album, so go check that out wherever you download your songs from, and you can get physical copies because we can still do that, which is nice to hold in the hands. So we're going to hold hands as we head into the recap. Sim was there, so join us after this short break. Right, Sim, the bull pit, not the bullseye as someone I know called it. 5-1, 5-star Royals. What did you... Oh, I'm just going to take a sip from this.
Ah, yes. What is that?
Did you notice that?
I did notice that, yeah.
It's a dinosaur water bottle.
No, it's not. Don't dumb it down. It's the new Jurassic World film. So.
It's very nice. Wow. For anyone who's not watching on YouTube, and you really should be, Ben's just brought a giant dinosaur head.
How exactly do you describe this to somebody who's not watching this on YouTube? It's... quite the drinking vessel.
Honestly, a lot of the conversations I have with Ben get very surreal on here. So welcome to my world. This one is a new, He's also wearing, while we're talking about things that are great for the audio listeners, he's also today, just so you know, wearing a Netherlands shirt, and I'm wearing an England shirt. So we didn't plan this at all. But if you are deep into the women's Euros, like I have been, and it looks like Ben has been, at least in terms of being a hater, Ben is bringing some world-class hating to the pod today.
I should say that I'm the only one who's actually wearing a Reading shirt out of us three, which is very disgraceful. And just to underline the point, I do have another Reading shirt up behind me for anybody else who's not watching this on YouTube, just to really emphasise how bad your support has been. You two, you pair of scamps.
Yeah,
but we'll actually properly represent the club, haven't we?
It's true.
Exactly right. He's true. He's not wrong. He's not wrong, listeners and viewers, actually. Anyway, enough of this nonsense. Let's talk about Hungerford Town, Sim. You were there. You were with the tens of Reading fans or hundreds of Reading fans. What did you make of the game, first of all? 5 goals. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it was good fun, actually. It was a good afternoon. And I think the main thing for me, aside from everything else, is that it was just a good, fun pre-season day out. You don't get too many non-league away days, particularly in Berkshire, following Reading. Obviously, you got the Berks and Bucks Cup games sometimes. But no, this was good fun. And I enjoyed the fact that we made the point of having a special game for a local team. Hungerford, a team that obviously are quite close to Reading, and they do try and support the team in general, and they encourage fans to come and watch their games when we're playing away. So it was good to kind of give something back to the local community, essentially. It was good fun, and it was quite funny because we had a cricket game going on next door as well, and there was one point in the second half when the Hungerford goalkeeper went to do a clearance and he sliced it, and it went out of the football game, over the fence, over the boundary, and into the cricket game, and they quickly gave it back to us, which is very good of them. You don't get this in the regular League One season. I know the League One season's a bit weird at the best of times, but you don't get anything quite as fun as this. Back to the actual football, yeah, I thought we played well. I thought we were sharp, we were coherent, some good patterns of play as well, and you don't want to kind of overanalyze it too much. Because Hungerford are obviously not a standard team we're going to be playing too often. But look, even in our own right, we were sharp, played really well, played some really good stuff individually, collectively. Some of the goals are really well taken as well. And yeah, some of them were a bit fortuitous in the second half. Kine Peters did a bit of a tap-in, basically, in the second half, kind of getting on the end of a Barrow free kick that had been saved. Ahmed grabbing the ball off the goalkeeper for 1 goal as well, and then having to slot it into an open net. So I don't want to kind of say they were all kind of brilliant goals, but look, we still played well, and the young players acquitted themselves really adeptly also. It's the kind of game when we've seen a lot of these young players not really stand up physically, quite often to more industrial players, shall we say, down in non-league. But look, Tuma, Osho, Kamara, players in the second half as well, they really stood up physically. They really impressed themselves on the game and really allowed us to kind of dictate the game. You kind of contrast this to, say, Woking away last season in pre-season, or Sutton 2 years ago. We didn't do that, and we didn't kind of record the comfortable win that we were expecting. But yeah, it was a really good, very comfortable game, as predicted and as executed.
I mean, you mentioned Basil Tuma there. You know, I think there was a bit of a running joke with the fans as to who would actually play in the game. You know, we talk about the triple signings we've made since that game. But, you know, going into the game itself, we were quite short on numbers. We had a little conversation, you know, last week, and we have all the way through the pods really about academy players stepping up this summer and who would be in and around the squad for these pre-season games. What in particular did you make of Basil Tuma? He was on a score sheet, obviously. According to you, he might not have scored 2 with your live tweets, but we'll come back to that later on. What did you make of his overall performance? Because we know that Ross is quite keen on him. You know,
I just think he's fast. I like fast players. I'll take that. But and also he's got a good name. Both of his names are good. Sound delicious. Sure. Anyway, what do you make of him?
But do you think he'd be able to, you know, to stick around in pre-season, or do you think he's going to be one of those that potentially heads out on loan from the club?
I think he's very much a fringe player at the minute, and I don't want to kind of overanalyze too much. Somebody who's just had a good game against Hungerford because he looked sharp, but at the end of the day, he was playing against non-league defenders, so he's not going to be up against that even in the cup competitions we play this season. But that being said, I thought he looked sharp with the ball, without the ball, and did this really interesting thing of kind of dropping in quite deep rather than just playing. Because you think about a quick striker, you think that he's going to play on the last man. He's going to try and get in behind. Someone like Lewis Wing is going to try and get the ball in behind, and he's going to try and run onto it. What he often did was just dropping off a little bit deeper, looking for those pockets of space. And the interesting thing is, because he's quick, you think, oh, this is just about him running in behind and being that very kind of direct player. But because he's so quick, he can drop off that little bit sharper. He can get onto the ball that little bit quicker and then just lay it off. And when he's able to do that, it means he doesn't have to kind of go up physically quite so much against opposition defenders. He's not going to be battling them for those really kind of physical, intense duels or trying to win the ball in the air. And I thought that was an interesting way of doing it. For the season ahead, I wouldn't, to be honest, have him in my top 2 for Reading strikers, just because he's so raw and because he's so inexperienced. But Reading play a lot of games over the course of the season, because we're in the league, the FA Cup, the League Cup, got the Pizza Cup as well. We're going to be playing a lot of games over the next 9 months or so. And he is going to get a few starts in the Cup, and why not? And he might come off the bench in the league a few times. And it is vital to have that depth, maybe kind of a third striker or a fourth striker. And if he can do that and he can impress in those games when he does play, then this could be a half decent breakout season for him.
I feel like for the players at this age, a lot of the time, this part of the season, so almost, early July through to about November is when they're at their busiest, obviously because the Pizza Cup or Car Cup or whatever it is we're calling it now is running. And I feel like, and the Carabao Cup, obviously. And that's kind of when we saw players like Emmanuel Osho a lot last season, sort of in the first half of the season, the early kind of period. But then as the season went on and the first team kind of becomes a little bit more not stagnant, that's the wrong phrase, but it's the same first team. Quite often, you start to work out who the starters are going to be. I feel like the academy players go away, but were there any players that you saw, other than Tuma, that you feel may play a role in those early Car Cup games that we may not have seen? Obviously, John Ryan coming back from injury.
Yeah, I think John Ryan's probably the obvious one, given that he played at left back for 45 minutes. Obviously, a problem position for us for quite a while now, and he looked good. He looked sharp, and I noticed that in the first half, Garcia seemed to be doing a fair amount of kind of inverting, not completely, and not kind of always doing that. Ryan, on the other hand, I think was kind of more of an orthodox left back, trying to kind of get out on the overlap and giving some width. So yeah, I don't see why he can't maybe play a few more times at left back over pre-season and get a good impression in. The other players to stand out, Ahmed as well, Emmanuel Osho, but given that they're both they were playing as right wingers in the game, and they're probably not going to be doing that over the coming season, particularly Ahmed, given that he's a right back by trade and he's had to play as right winger this time. I know he's done it before kind of very briefly in the league coming off the bench, but that's not really his long-term position. And Osho, maybe as a winger, maybe as a right back, I'm still kind of not really sure where he's going to settle at this point. But yeah, look, we got some good young players kind of knocking on the door. I haven't talked about Spencer yet or Tyler Saki, two really kind of bright players who look very, very exciting for the next couple of years. So yeah, and one of the interesting things about pre-season is that you always get like a surprise young player who comes through. You go back 12 months and it was Andre Garcia. Nobody had a clue who he was. And then he turns up and he plays well in pre-season. All of a sudden, he's coming off the bench against Birmingham City, he's starting at left back, and
I feel like the flip side to that is Kanu, who kind of popped up around this time 12 months ago as well. And we kind of thought that he might be a solution, because I feel like already this time last year we were planning for Bindon leaving. But Kanu obviously didn't quite go in the same direction as Garcia, or at least couldn't, get as many games as Garcia by the end of the season.
No Matty Jacob or Paudie O'Connor in the team or squad at all. Jack Stevens played in goal second half, and we had a surprise trialist, which I don't think anyone knew was going to happen. Yeboah Amankwa. Careful how you say that. How did you feel about those two players?
Absolutely nothing to say about them whatsoever at all. Because look, when you're playing away at Hungerford, all due respect to Hungerford, you're not going to be doing a lot of defending. And even when you're looking at, say, distribution, if you look at, say, distribution in a League One game, you've got presses to go through and you've got like a deep block to break down, that kind of thing. You're not really getting that from Hungerford. I don't think Stevens had a save to make. Maybe not. And the try list, yeah, it looked fine. It looked comfortable enough in possession, but I can't really say too much about him. The more kind of fun thing with the try list is that you see someone on the bench before the game and you're like, hang on, I don't have a clue who that is. And you're suddenly kind of, I'm trying to zoom in and take the most in-depth picture that I can from the other side of the stadium, trying to work it out. And then you're going through the transfer market page, all the free agents. Is this guy? Is it that guy? And that was kind of most of the fun in the first half, trying to work out who this mysterious guy was. But fair play, RFC Latest managed to do some very good sleuthing on Twitter and come up with a name when nobody else had it. Yeah.
Well, it will be interesting to see heading into the weekend if they, if they make it down to Gillingham, if that trial is still in and around the team and squad.
Could be interesting. Just to jump in real quick on that, Yeboah Amonkwa, you're right. Be careful how you say that. But interesting players come from the Manchester City Academy, from the, same kind of era that I think Gittins was there briefly, but before he was with us, and a lot of other good players have come out of that academy from around the same kind of time. So not that he's, Amonkwa has done lots since then. He's been playing in the second division in Belgium, but still kind of interesting. Route for that player. See a lot more of these players now playing in like a big club's academy in England and then going off to, like Northern Europe to play some games before they come back.
Well, I mean, talking to big academies, we've got Finley Burns in on a season-long loan from Cité.
There's another one. There you go.
And we got Matty Jacob, who we briefly mentioned, who was not part of the team, on loan from Hull City Tigers for a season. And, of course, Marco Mane on loan from Brighton and Hove Albion. We did say last week that we would talk about free agents. That was before we found out we'd signed 3 actual physical players. Ross, you've done a bit of a breakdown on those players, haven't you?
I have.
Without sounding it like the board on Moneyball, who do you want to start with first?
I
want to talk about first? That's what he says.
Well, I know, isn't it amazing? It's only been a week since our last chat, and we can say, who do you want to talk about next of all these like players that Reading have signed? It doesn't quite feel real to have signed this many players this quickly, but here we are. I think I'll start with Finley Burns, just to stay with the Manchester City Academy sort of theme with this. So, yeah, Finley Burns, handsome chap. That's the first thing to note about him.
I read a rumour that he's 8 foot tall. Is that true?
He looks like he's 8 foot tall. So I obviously, did my research and I was watching, these guys. And sometimes it takes me a little while to pick out or be able to pick out the player on the field just by immediately okay, that's how he runs. That's what he looks like. Once you've been watching a team for a long time, you can pick out each player very quickly just by looking at them from their gait and stuff like that. But with Finley Burns, it took me 2 things. I went, oh, it's that one. It's the really, really tall guy in the middle of defense. Yeah, so Finley Burns is a very, very tall man from the Manchester City Academy. He is pretty useful in the air. Last year, he was playing with Hull City on loan in the Championship. The year before that, he spent the entire year on loan with Stevenage in League One. The year when Stevenage did pretty well. I think they'd just come up from League Two. And had a pretty good season under Steve Evans, I think it was that season for Stevenage. He won 70% of his aerial duels per 90 with Stevenage during that season. So yeah, he's a big boy and he knows how to use his head. Plays on the right side. He played on the right side for Hull and for Stevenage.
Sorry.
You need to stop.
I wondered what you were going to say then.
Yeah. Do you know the fun thing is Mbenge is our last right-sided centre back, and he used to use his legs, but Finley can use his head as well. So that's always good. Yeah. So Finley Burns, good passer, both short and long range. He can put a ball forward from long range in the same way that Porty O'Connor can. We kind of talked about that even though Porty O'Connor is a right-sided centre back, he likes to play on the left side, but still puts the ball onto his right foot. Finley can play the ball with both feet, but he can play it well, long. He can play it well short. I'll try and put up some sort of a clip of this sometime this week, but there's a really great play that I saw him do under Ruben at Hull last season, where he can basically, come inside with a player on his back and then pass inside to the kind of collecting center mid ready to get the play started. And so he gets the play going. There's people pressing him, but he still manages to press effectively. So, pretty exciting player in terms of build up. What are you creasing about? I can't.
Are you aware of what you say sometimes?
No, what did I say?
Ben and I have a very, very childish sense of humour. Let's put it that way. So let's move on for that quickly.
All right, perfect. Well, anyway, Finley Burns, he's happy to step very, very far forwards. He's I can't concentrate because you guys are laughing about this.
I have completely lost it at that. The thing is, I'd be all right if Sim wasn't there just giggling on mute, but I've lost it. Right, let's move on from Finley Burns. Let's talk about
good passing. Wait, well, hang on. Good passing centre back. I think he'll start the season on the right side of the centre back duo. So it'll be Porty O'Connor on the left and Finley Burns on the right. Would be my expectation for game one this season. Stickland maybe, but yeah, I'm expecting Finley Burns.
Okay. Another defender, Matty Jacob from Hull City Tigers. I have to say Tigers because
that's fine. I like that. That's good.
It's not Jacobs, as Sim told me in the week. I thought it was Jacobs, but it's not Jacobs.
It's not.
This is one of those names that is just going to get mispronounced throughout the entire season. We've had so many names that just get kind of missaid. Nigel Atkins from a few years ago as well.
Yeah.
He's going to be Matty Jacobs throughout the entire thing. To be fair, it does sound a little bit better, has a bit more of a ring to it. Saying Jacobs, I think because people are thinking of the Crackers, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly right. What do we know about him? Good player by all accounts. I mean, they're all good players. Surely they wouldn't be coming to Reading otherwise, would they?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited about Matty Jacob. I think that there was a really good article that actually Sim put out this week on him, and something that I found kind of interesting in there was, who did you call on from the Hull? I just want to make sure he gets his props. The guy in the Hull fan group.
The likes of Hull City, one of the best names for a football website out there.
That is a really good one. But yeah, it gave some really interesting, thoughts on him. They definitely thought that he was, defensively solid. He's a defender first. And looking at his kind of, play online, he's definitely quite traditional. Yeah, for sure. He was in the top 10 in recoveries per 90 in the championship in 24-25. So he really gets around and he makes a lot of, defensive plays on the ball. Something to note with him, though, that I actually need to note with Finley Burns as well is that he played a pretty low total number of minutes last season, around 500. He couldn't keep his place, in the team at all times. He actually played more before Ruben sort of joined the team. And like I say, he is a bit more of a traditional getting paint on his, boots, going up and down the line, providing overlapping runs, sort of fullback. So maybe not the kind that Ruben uses. We know he used more kind of inverted players. What he is, though, is he's another kind of volume player in the numbers that he has put down. So he wins the majority of his duels, and he's a really, really good progressive passer. So he's making more progressive passes per 90 than a lot of other fullbacks, even at championship level. And so coming down to League One level, I think that sort of defensive first attitude is going to give him, the energy and the aggression that he needs to get through the league. But also he could be a real addition for Reading going forwards. And if he is able to, get outside, be that player in wide spaces during an attack for Reading, then that will just provide more opportunities for our left winger to cut inside. If that's Kelvin, then that's great because we know that Kelvin loves to jump in on his right foot and then obviously take that shot. And oftentimes he had to go out left. Obviously he can hit that byline, Kelvin, but wasn't always what we wanted him doing. So yeah, Matty Jacob could be a really interesting pickup for Reading. And overall, I think feels like the most exciting, as you said, Sim, finally filling a spot of need for Reading. We've needed a left back for a very, very long time. Last thing I'll say about him, he gets on the ball a lot. So Lewis Wing is the player who gets on the ball the most for Reading. He gets on the ball something like an average of around 100 times a game. More in some games, less in others, but averaging around 100. I saw a lot of games from Matty Jacob where he was averaging around like 80 to 90 touches on the ball. So just getting involved with play a lot. And I think that comes from a player who can be useful defensively in that he's recovering the ball and then helping find, a player to pass out to, but he's also useful going forward. This is this is another good pickup, really. As I search through the numbers and things on Finley Burns and Matty Jacob, I see the fingerprints of some pretty good recruiting, to be honest.
You say he played 500 minutes last
around
time.
500 minutes, yeah. So I'll try and find you some context for that. I'll try and find you how many minutes Tyler Bindon played last year, but I know that is certainly not a full season. So Tyler Bindon played 4,000 minutes last season. A lot of players in League One you would consider fairly regular players will get something closer to, especially if they're higher up the pitch, which Matty Jacob isn't, but still, you'll see them, get around 2,500 minutes, sometimes, even fewer. But yeah, that's kind of he definitely didn't play as many minutes as you would want last season, and that's kind of the caveat with a lot of these players. I think that they put up good numbers, but they haven't been super tested over the past few years. So
yeah, I mean, you're right. I think it looks like we've got two good players there, really. Sim, I know you, as Ross referenced, you wrote a decent piece on Matty Jacob. Going to have to emphasise the B. Any other thoughts on him before we move on to our new striker?
Yeah, I just think that even though he's not played a huge amount for Hull, obviously about 500 minutes, as Ross said, he has also had his other loan experience. He's gone out and played for, I think Gates said he got quite a lot of football, Pickering as well. And like, again, as we were talking about with Hungerford as well earlier, non-league might not be kind of like the biggest challenge, might not be the biggest test, but the fact that he's gone out and he's played quite regularly and he's got that experience, he's known what it's been like to get shunted about and to get kicked each week, just little things that get you ready properly for first team football. This isn't a guy who's just come from Hull City's academy and started playing a little bit of football and now he's coming off to Reading. He's somebody who's already got that bit of experience, and it's the same thing with Marco Marni as well, and Finn Burns as well. Given that they've already gone out and they've got that experience, they're not joining Reading as a first loan, as kind of the loan when they start getting used to men's football. They've already done that, and they are now able to come here and contribute ready on a regular basis in League One, particularly with Finn Burns, given that he's already played a lot of game time for Stevenage, but also Marco Marni, given that he played, I think it was about a dozen games last season for Pompey, something like that.
Yeah.
Exactly, and they're not raw young players. They're players who can come in and make an impact already.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think sometimes when you look at signings down at this level, you can think that they're out, they're trying to get their first level of experience. But I definitely think that, like I said, I think Finley Burns will start the season at right centre back unless they really come in with something that knocks our socks off over the next few weeks. Maybe Kalidou Koulibaly's coming back after the Club World Cup to play right centre back for Reading. But I think you're right. These are players that can step in right away and do a job.
Final one then, Marco Marni, desperately needed signing in the forward department. We said last week, it didn't need an expert to work out how light we were. We've still got Long Kelvin, hopefully to come in. But we are very, very short up top at the moment. And, that despite scoring 5 goals, that probably showed in the terms of the depth and the players having to come in to play on Saturday. How quickly do you think Marco Marni can stake a claim in the first team picture and ultimately start in 11 when it comes around to Lincoln away on the first weekend of August?
Yeah, I think that, like we talked about in the last few weeks, sometimes the first few weeks of the season aren't always, the lineup that you expect to see come business end and come like that time between February and April where, those good clubs need to churn on and just get through their wins and get themselves into the positions that they want to be in. But I do think that we might see Mark Marni tried and started for a few games. He has started games for Portsmouth last season. He had quite an injury hit season. So I think that was, part of the reason why he didn't play quite as much as he certainly would have wanted to. I think he's talked about that as well, that he would have wanted to play more, last season. I can certainly tell you that it's not going to take long for him to endear himself to Reading fans, because the last 2 goals that he scored 3 in the Championship last season. The last 2 were against Oxford. So he's definitely not, got a hard job on his hands to convince fans. He's Reading through and through. This is another decent signing. And like Sim says, I think that he could be, one who's not just going on, he's not one who's going on his first loan or anything. He's had some experience already. And if he's dropping down to a league below where he was loaned last season, he'll be hoping to start a lot of games. So, kind of what can we tell you about him? He's strong, he's fast, and he can bully the defense pretty well. Some of the goals that he scored last season came directly from his pressing action, where he's gotten on the back of a defender who's maybe taken a second too long, and he's big. I've seen a couple of plays where he's bashed into somebody and that's just completely thrown them off the ball. So he's certainly someone that can mix it up, but he's taller than Wareham as well, and has scored goals with his head as well. He plays for the Republic of Ireland under 21, and he's done it a lot. So, that's good to, have experience playing, Championship minutes and, he's played a few Premier League minutes as well. He's scored for Brighton in the Carabao Cup. But still, getting consistent minutes as well, playing for the Republic of Ireland. But yeah, he's really, really solid out of possession. One thing I would say is that he doesn't shoot that often, or really much at all. He only took 10 shots in 600 minutes of football last season. But when he gets on target, he is pretty clinical. So I count 3 or 4. I'm not 100% sure. There are some different things on different stat boards, but 3 or 4 shots on target last season, of which he scored 3 times. So, when he does get it on target from a total of 10 shots, he's pretty clinical. So that's good to see. He outscored his XG last year, which probably comes down partially to him not taking that many shots. But again, good to see a man who, when he is shooting, very often scores. The conversion rate is pretty good on his shots. So yeah, I mean, this could be pretty good. He's got elements of Harvey Nibbs in him. He's got elements of Wareham in him. And I feel like Sam Smith didn't take that many shots either, something like 2 per game usually. Last thing I'll say, though, 3 goals in 600 minutes last season. So if we break that down, he's got a goal every 200 minutes or so. So that's a little under a goal every other game. So even with an injury hit, fairly weak season in terms of minutes, he was still able to score at a decent enough rate. And I think if he comes in and picks up between 12 and 15 goals for us this season, for a lone player 20 years of age, I think Reading will probably be happy with that. But hey, I might be getting ahead of myself there.
Well, they say never fall in love with a lone player, don't they? But we've got 3 in the last couple of days, so it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. This is definitely not, given with the 1 year contract extensions as well. This is definitely not a squad for the future. This is a kind of, we'll see what happens as we go through. No pressure, no expectation on these players to potentially stay. It's all to play for them, really. So, it's on one hand, you could negatively look at it and say it doesn't show a lot of confidence. On the other, it could say, look, it's an opportunity for them to really kick on and, take the shackles off and go, look, I'm here for a year regardless. It's just to see how far we can take this team collectively. So it's going to be interesting to see what the team looks like come the 2nd of August against Lincoln away. We've got a massive mailbag, so I feel like we should just get into that right now. What do you reckon?
Crack it open. Get the letter opener out.
Yeah, all right. Let's do it. It's more like it'd be more scissors with a bag, wouldn't it?
That's fair. Yeah, a scythe. Mail. Let's get the mail scythe out to cut the bag out. Are you thinking like a knapsack, like you hold over your like a wolf? Anyway, shut up, Ross. Get on with it.
I mean, you could do it with a letter opener, but it would take you quite a while.
It would. It'd be a lot of slicing, wouldn't there?
You make quite a mess, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it'd be everywhere. It'd be canvas.
Very sophisticated, though. Sophistication's not about speed; it's about looking good while you do it.
True. Anyway, we're going to crack it open with an implement. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back into your questions. Right, so welcome back to episode 423. Eagle Eye viewers will notice that I've moved. During that recap, I moved location in the house. It's being weird today. It just keeps kicking me out. I think it's because I'm being bullied. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Ross is probably just hitting a button. He tried it off air and he was like, I can get rid of him straight away.
Yeah.
Because he's like, the studio.
So you do it like that, and then like what, so now, and now he's kicked out, so he can't listen to us anymore. So anyway, let's get kick-started with the mailbag, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? So first one that's come in from the mailbag from Mike. Thank you very much, Mike. Mountain Mike. Thank you, Mike. Sent us, hi, Ben and Ross. Being Irish, I'm delighted to see young Irish lads progress and given the chance to develop. We normally produce players with a good work ethic and add, if I pronounce this word wrong, I'm sorry, crack and banter to the dressing room, which is also good. What is it? Crack?
The crack.
Right, who let you back in? Anyway, Irish players have done the club very well in the past. I always keep my eye for young Irish players, and I'm really excited to see what Omani does. However, if any of the lads are not up to scratch, do you think Noel Hunt will drop them or will bias play a factor? There's also the added element of some of these lads having Stephen Hunt as their agent. As always, keep up the fantastic work. Thank you, Mike. Very much appreciated.
Is the question, do I think he won't drop them because they're Irish?
Basically, yeah. Ben, what do you think of that first? You go first.
Well, do you know what?
Sim, what do you think of that?
I thoroughly endorse this very, very fun bullying of Ben, and
I'm enjoying it too, actually. Yeah. So
if we're gonna bully him on the podcast every week, I'll be here every time, and I will enjoy it thoroughly.
Do you want to actually tell us what you think of him now? Because what you think of his question now? Because I think I've actually removed Ben.
I would actually no, Ben, you clear off and you stay out for a little bit. I'm gonna take over this.
Did I tell you I met Mike? I met him on the last game of the season.
Oh, you did? Yeah, nice.
Yeah. He came up to me and was like, "Oh, everyone knows that guy." And I was like, "Yes." Yeah, anyway, do I think he won't play them because they're Irish, or not play them? No, I don't think that will happen at all. It's an interesting point though. Like I think you get, you had these Premier League teams where they kind of have little groups of nationalities that would obviously build, good morale within the squad. And I think, we've been very, as he said, very, very successful with Irish players in the past. And we can only hope that this moving forward and the kind of vetting that you'd like to think that Stephen Hunt wouldn't stitch his brother up with getting him to sign, dud players. It might sound like a really stupid thing, but where we've been with a certain someone over the last few years where they've just gone, yeah, he's a good player.
I was just going to say that. I'm glad you brought that up because, I was like, no, I don't think that it would affect it at all. But the thing that has kind of not made me pause, but at least made me go, I could see why some people would be like, about that is the repeated Stephen Hunt link in terms of the agent with the players who are coming in. But to a certain degree, if they're good players, they're good players. And what's Noah Hunt's brother meant to do? Not tell him about players that he thinks would be appropriate for his level. I think at least he understands, what kind of players Noah will be looking for. But I could have said this about a certain someone again, and it could have sounded like a moron. So I definitely get a little bit of hesitation there.
Go on, Sim. What do you think? You can talk.
Thing is, you go back to Reading a few years ago, and we were the kind of bit of a joke of an organisation when you could imagine something like that happening. And before we had a proper structure, before we had a proper head of football operation, who's obviously gone now, but before we had a proper system in place behind the scenes. But now we've got an owner who actually kind of properly takes interest in football, and he knows what it's like to run a football club, whether you like Kuig or not. He's someone who's got experience and he kind of knows what he wants to do with the club. We've got Joe Jacobson as well. He's very experienced in the game in general, obviously not in this role, but still he knows what he wants to do. Brian Carey as well. And I just can't see that kind of setup would allow a player to come in if they didn't all want him, let alone before you get into, are we going to play him because he's Irish or because he's got a link to the manager. I just don't think we're that kind of club, and we're very professional with it. And
it's a good point. It's a changed organisation, and I think there will still be some scepticism about how much the club has changed from the outside and possibly inside in the fan base as well. But if these signings turn out to be any good, then people will continue to kind of laud the recruitment. And actually, as you say, those dark days are long gone. So yeah, look, we hope they work out, and we hope that connection continues to kind of bear pretty positive fruit, really, in terms of allowing those players to express themselves, but also to contribute to the overall aims of the club on the pitch. So yeah, look, it's exciting, and I think having that connection and that family relationship is never a bad thing in sport. So it's one to watch anyway in terms of the recruitment over the summer. Bobbins. We've now got Dorset, Stickland, O'Connor and Burns who can play at centre-back. There have been rumours of Reece Welsh. Do we need more centre-backs?
Ooh.
I would, if I can jump in on this, I would definitely get another one, because if there's only one position on the pitch, maybe with the exception of goalkeeper, where you don't want to play fast and loose, you don't want to gamble, it's centre-back. And you go back to last season when obviously we had a really, really good pairing in Bindenen and Bengay, but as soon as one of those players goes out, are we playing Yeardom as an auxiliary centre-half? Are we putting Stickland in there? Holzman was there a little bit. It just gets a little bit haphazard, and it's the kind of thing where if you don't have a good centre-back pairing, whatever else you do on the pitch, it just gets undermined, and you don't get that confidence coming out from the back for the other players. And look, what's the harm in finding, I don't know, the trialist, for example, that we had on Saturday? If he does well, give him a year, and he can give you a year of cover, essentially. You look at, say, Clinton Mola that we had a couple of years ago. Somebody came in right at the end of the window, and he was a bit of a low-key signing, and he obviously left at the end of the season. But he did give us that cover in a few different positions, and we were able to just slot him in. You think about last season, in contrast, when we didn't have that extra player in the squad, and you had to play Yeardom at centre-back, you had to do Ruchesha at right-back, and all the rest of it. And if you don't have that extra bit of cover, you do regret it in December when you've got a few players injured or whatever, or if you've got a couple of cup games coming up.
It's disappointing that you didn't reference Denzel Gravenberch at that point. But each to their own. Long time ago now, that seems like.
I was going to say, I don't know if I know who that is. Sorry, you said that so confidently. Denzel Gravenberch.
Yeah, he was.
Denzel, not Denzel, actually.
I thought it was Denzel.
He's a guy who came in, I think, under Brian McDermott in his second spell, right before he left the club, and right before Jaap Stam came in. One of those very random Brian Everden. Sorry?
Did he come in with Joey Vandenberg?
He was before Vandenberg, but he was a Brian Everden signing. You know, that summer when we brought in loads of Dutch players. So Roy Behrens, well, not loads, but Roy Behrens came in as well. And it was that kind of summer when we brought in just kind of random cheap players. I don't think he played that much, but he did injure somebody away at Arsenal in the League Cup, and Arsene Wenger got very upset, I think, because he was a big lad. He was a stocky lad. He played like right back or something. Yeah. And then he actually ended up as a striker a few years ago.
Yeah.
Very, very randomly, very, very random position change.
I see that. Yeah, I just found his Wikipedia page, and he's striker / centre back. He's played. He's 31, and I think he's played for 31 teams. So he's been around a little bit. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, sorry, Ben. You said that with confidence, and we gave you blank stares.
I know. Adam Jones, TTE alumni, now of Star fame and also SBW.
It's alumnus, actually, Ben. Alumni is plural, but alumnus.
Shut your face, otherwise we'll kick you out. How many years are you giving Kelvin E for a new contract? Ooh, good question. How many years? It's like a rubbish game show, this. Still plenty of room for him to grow, and he's a great asset to have at full throttle. Love that word.
People want you to say spicy again. Say spicy again. I think that's
that went viral, didn't it? What did I get? Like 13 likes or something? It's crazy.
Yeah. So pull that out. Just pull that out at a surprise time. Don't tell us when. Anyway, it's funny. Like, I would only probably have gone a year before Matty Jacob signed, and I know Jacob is only. Oh God, I said Jacobs too. I know Matty.
He's doing it already.
I've done it already. I've mucked it up. I know Matty Jacob's only here for a year, but maybe you give Kelvin 2 years if that'll get the deal across the line. And I've been kind of interested to see what Kelvin with an overlapping fullback rather than a technical come inside kind of fullback looks like, just for the reasons I was saying earlier.
Yeah. just stop saying things like that because it sets him off. Look, he's laughing now.
He moves inside the field, you absolute children. All right. He's a half space operator. All right. That's what's going on.
Right. So get things back on track properly to avoid you giggling at me, Ben. Long Kelvin. I would instinctively give him a year and another kind of club option of another year beyond that. But let's be honest, given that we've been negotiating for quite a while, if that was an easy deal to do in terms of contract length, we probably would have already done it. I would imagine that he's after a longer contract, and we're kind of considering that. I would accept maybe 2+1 or 2, something like that, if it gets him to commit. And the thing is, the difference between him and, say, Wareham or Craig, who may have also had the kind of same problem with contract length in their negotiations, Kelvin is somebody that I can see becoming an established, really good first-team player, probably more than them at this point in time. It's a little bit harsh on Craig, given that he did well, but given that Craig wasn't really first-team right-back, he wasn't really first-team midfielder, Kelvin has an opportunity to come in and be our first-team left-winger and to really nail that down if he gets competition from somebody else, if he gets proper solidity behind him in a left-back, that can really kind of unlock him. So I would be happier to go more like 2 years.
We are really pro Kelvin on this pod and the website in general. We really like him here. I really like him as a player as well. I think he's there's a lot of potential there, and I would love to see him back in a Reading shirt next year. I really would, and I'd agree with that. I think 2 years.
Can I add one thing there though? I'll say one little concern I would have, and kind of exacerbated by the signing of Marco Mani, in that Marco Mani is a kind of, I would almost call him like a pressing forward. Is that Kelvin maybe doesn't get through enough, out of possession work for what the team are looking for right now. And so I could see Kelvin being a casualty, in terms of not offering him a high enough contract and leaving, if Hunt or the team decide that he's just not the kind of, forward that they want right now. I think that Kelvin has, we've talked about him being Lucas João-esque at times. He has that real bit of skill. He's got a turn in him. He's got like a finish in him that nobody else in the team has. But also he can sometimes, not quite. I think he is decent defensively when he's in his own box. We saw him used on the front post a lot and be pretty good at heading the ball away. But in the opposition third, I don't know if he's the best pressing forward. I could be wrong on that, but yeah, I could kind of see him being a casualty this summer if, the kind of pressing forward route is where no one wants to take the team, because you could start the season with Marco Mani and Harvey Nibbs almost as your forwards.
I think you can do with a bit of variety, though. You don't want every striker, every forward to be a pressing forward. Obviously, ideally, you have players who are really good at pressing and really good at everything else. But we're a League One team. We're not going to be able to bring in strikers and wingers who are good at literally everything. And Kelvin does just give you a little bit of something different. If you want someone to unlock a defence, someone to really kind of combine with the midfielders you got and a fullback that you got on the overlap, he does give you something a little bit different. And I guess he's similar a bit to Lucas João, in that he is clever and he does kind of try things. And having somebody like that, I mean, would it be easy to replace him with another kind of Kelvin-esque forward?
That's a really good point. You got to look at the replacements, haven't you? What's available, and if they go, oh yeah, we've gone out and got this out and out left winger, then yeah, fine. But I just think he's an asset. I really do. I think there's a versatility there that you don't often get in those forward players. Relationships as well in terms of how he knows those players. So for me, they really should be, and I'm sure they are, really kind of negotiating hard to get him done and dusted, because that would be fantastic for us. The rumour is that he's training with the team as well. I don't know if that's just, I don't know. I'm not sure, but you'd like to think that was true as well, really.
It's one of those where you kind of, everybody's pouring up their eyes over every little bit of training footage, every photo that comes out, every video that comes out, and somebody kind of vaguely looks half like Kelvin from a certain angle, and somebody says, oh, that's Kelvin, and then to somebody else it becomes, oh, that's definitely Kelvin, and it goes around like something more solid than it actually is.
Yeah.
Here's a question. Kelvin got 5 yellow cards last season. I'll take higher or lower from both of you. More or less goals? or higher or lower? Like higher than 5, lower than 5 for
He had
goals.
fewer, he had fewer than that, I think.
Yeah, he got a few goals last season.
All right, so higher than 5 or lower than 5?
Lower.
In League One. This is League One. I should
League One.
clarify.
Oh, just League
33
One.
matches, 5 yellow cards in League One. Higher than 5 goals or lower?
Lower.
What's Ben
Yeah,
gonna say?
in terms of the League One, I'd say lower. Yeah.
Yeah, 4. Yeah, he got 7 goal involvements, 3 assists. But yeah, more yellow cards than goals last season. So I
remember
like
his
him.
goals more than anyone else, though.
What is that? What is that, sir?
Well, I remember his goals more than anyone else. Like, you think about Birmingham away, first game of the season.
Yeah.
Shrewsbury
But
away as well.
we remember Royston Drenthe as well still, and that's not
That's
necessarily for good reasons. So I think the Lucas Schwau analogy with Kevin is really apt. I think the only thing that Kelvin could do that Lucas couldn't is that he plays out wide sometimes.
When they score goals, when they score good goals. Like
Yeah.
Joao wasn't the kind of player to just do a tap in. Kelvin isn't that kind of player either.
Yeah.
There was that really good goal against Shrewsbury, and I remember it because it was his first goal in about 17 lunar cycles or something. So what was the goal? So there was that goal, there was the Birmingham goal.
Oh gosh.
Maybe 1 or 2 at home in the league. Maybe something
I'm
like
sure he
that.
scored at home. The Shrewsbury away one is the one I remember, and the Birmingham away one is the one that really stick in my mind.
Yeah.
I'm sure
the
he scored
Shrewsbury
at home.
one.
Sure
And the thing
he
about the Shrewsbury game is that it was so frustrating because you knew he had that in his locker for so long, and you're waiting every week, when he's going to do this, when he's going to do this.
Yeah.
And I think kind of counterintuitively, because he was so frustrating, you could look at that and say, well, let's not give him a chance. But I think it'd give him another contract. But because he does have that in him, I'm just convinced there is a player that we can get that consistently out next season. And if we do, then great player.
He scored 2 of his goals in League One in match days 1 and 2. So then he only picked up 2 goals in the other 30 appearances he made this last season. He did miss all of November and December and a lot of January through injury. So he missed a lot of games. He was coming back from that. Scored 2 once he came back from injury and picked up 2 assists.
Interesting. Andy Taylor, controversial one. This one. Get ready for this.
Okay.
How do you see the job of our local media now? With BBC Bark seemingly sidelined and the Chronicle not breaking anything anymore, should the chairman really be the club's mouthpiece? Oof.
God, that's a big question. Trying to get
That's
us
a
in trouble.
large question from Andy. And he always comes in hard, Andy, with these questions, but that's a big one.
And now
let's zoom out for a little bit. This is a problem that goes back a lot further than just kind of maybe a few weeks or a few months or whatever. The state of local media has generally been getting a lot more strained in the last few years, quite a while. I mean, you go back a while and Get Reading were at literally every game. We had a dedicated Reading reporter for them. And I think that eventually just kind of closed completely. And it is a sad state of affairs when local media in general, not just at Reading, obviously, but all across the country, is getting sidelined. It's not really getting properly kind of given the proper love. And to be fair, we kind of make things a little bit more difficult for them because we're an extra bit of competition ourselves, given that we're doing coverage as well. So I do think I'll at least kind of recognise that. But look, it's a really, really difficult job for the local media, especially when a new owner comes in and he says, I don't want any leaks, I don't want anything to come out. They're reliant on those kind of relationships with people in the club who are going to give them information. And if they're not getting that, that's the kind of thing that people want to hear on Twitter, on the website as well. So I do feel for them, but at the same time, our local media are doing a really good job. And we have been lucky to have some really good local journalists as well over the last few years. James Earnshaw does a really good job. So yeah.
Difficult for you don't want to be that guy who says stuff without the right reply from other people. I do have quite specific views on one part of that question, Andy. And if you want to share a lager at some point, I'm more than happy to have those conversations with you. But like, I think, Sim's right, particularly the print and the website side of it, in terms of the chronicles you mentioned there, their reach is slowly whittled down because of finances and because of availability and everything else. And, James Earnshaw was fantastic over the last few seasons in terms of connecting people together in a club and everything else.
What's the name of the lad? I know there was Benji Nurk who went to Southampton too, who was good, and then there was the lad who went to the Telegraph. I can't remember his name. He's a Reading fan.
Cheeman.
Brilliant, yeah, great
Fantastic.
local journalist. Brilliant,
really good
And
guy.
he does really good stuff on TikTok as well.
Oh,
Don't they?
Yeah, he's a multimedia guy. Yeah,
everyone's
Very
on
modern.
TikTok except me. It's livid.
I met him at the Walsall game last season. Lovely guy.
Ah, nice.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Good egg.
I want. Can I just jump on Sim's point? I'm sorry, Ben. We're jumping all over you today, and I'll kick you out of the studio if you talk back. But anyway, yeah, I agree with Sim's point that local media has been more and more strained over the last few years. I just wanted to back up that, and it's the same over here in the United States. So Kuwig will likely be aware of that. But yeah, it is important to have local media. You know, like there's things that should be kept accountable at every level, you know, like at national level, but also down to your county and even maybe your town level with a town as big as Reading, obviously. And yeah, it's yeah, I guess I'm just saying also that local reporting is important and they are definitely strained. So I would keep that in mind when thinking about any, thinking about the local media at least, while still being allowed to have valid criticisms, obviously.
Yeah, I think there's a really good opportunity to shake things up. And I think, obviously we know from Kuwig that he's got some fairly specific ideas about how he wants those things to run. You look at the club's own media department in the way that they've been engaging with fans a lot more on social media. Phil Catchpole, we believe, has come in, great guy, really knowledgeable about the game and kind of coming in and doing those interviews, in particular alongside who's already there. So, there's no doubt that is a really big focus for the club, and it should be. There should be no reason why that area of the club can't compete with some of the clubs higher up the pyramid, really. So, it's
shared. I'm sure it's it's kind of the same in England too. I'm pretty sure, because obviously the Premier League takes a lot of inspiration from the NFL in terms of how it broadcasts itself and how it markets itself and stuff, and also has its own, things that have worked very well for it, that it's developed itself. I think that a lot of the clubs that you get at lower levels in the US that Kuwig will have seen as well do a lot of their like outreach to fans through this kind of social media video and stuff like that these days. You see, as much as you see like people around the stadiums with like big cameras doing the traditional like Getty images sort of stuff, you also see people just running around with like official press passes doing just like the phone stuff now, and that becomes more and more about how the game is sold, to fans. Kuwig talked a lot about how American fans were already pretty into soccer. It's been big here since the 94 World Cup? Yeah, 94 World Cup, of course. But still, there's been a big growth since the pandemic, and partly that has been driven by social media. So I think that, Kuwig will want to be making sure that his message is getting out to the people with the most reach, and that is often people on social media who have followings. So, yeah.
Abby, friend of the show, Abby. We're going to get her on. We're going to do a big women's preview recap stuff.
The best thing about guests who come on the show is that they get to find out they're coming on the show on the pod when they listen, which is good.
To be fair, I said to her, because we've been talking a bit about, I was watching the Wales game, who weren't great the other day against the team I'm currently wearing a shirt of, ironically.
Yeah.
And I just said that, you got to come on, because with the news, and this is a question about Ed Jackson-Norris coming in from Maidenhead. That is a really, really good point. We talked last week a little bit about, Pedro Bruno in terms of how well he'd done and has now been, let go by the club. But, Ed coming in, great experience with he was originally at our club actually, and then going to Maidenhead and doing so well there. What do you make of him coming in, gents, in terms of the raising the profile of the women and developing those players further in terms of what we would all class as a successful season to stay in the league, and now sort of kick on and move forward with what resources they do have currently, and what we hope will happen based on Kuwig's comments on this very pod actually a couple of weeks ago.
I think it's really exciting, actually. The fact that we're getting a full-time manager, no disrespect at all to Pedro, who did a fantastic job, a really, really good job in really difficult circumstances, bearing in mind they had to build a team right at the 11th hour at the start of last season. They went through so much, losing players across the course of the season, and the community trust did a fantastic job as well. But the fact that we've gone from that to a full-time manager really kind of suggests to me that they're getting a lot more support in general. And little things like, I think his introduction interview was done inside Bearwood as well. There seems to be a much more kind of support for the women's team. Interesting to see kind of how that turns out in terms of signings and other things across the course of the season. But at this stage, it does look like we are serious about supporting the women's team and getting them back up the leagues. And he was talking in his interview about kind of like the first step in properly climbing back up the divisions. It's going to be a long way to get back up to kind of the first tier or the second tier or anything like that. There's much bigger teams with potentially bigger resources and backing than us. But it could be an exciting season next season, and hopefully it'll be a good one for them.
I think what you said too about it being, a full-time manager and showing that commitment, it will help in terms of what we were talking about with players, we're leaving, midway through the season to go to other, league rivals and things like that. And having a manager who is committed, not only makes it easier to sign players, I think, but also to keep them around. You would think that if you've got a full-time manager, they can be a bit more accessible to the players than, a part-time manager or something like that. And again, with massive respect to what Pedro Bruno and the coaching staff were able to do last season. But I think it's important to show commitment to the women that you want to put their bodies on the line for your club. Even at this level, it's important to show that commitment. So yeah, it's good news.
I wasn't going to mention this one because we talked about it already, but Lee Griffin says, is there any news on brackets long Kelvin? And I just thought that was class.
I like that we're glad to hear that we long Kelvin and the long running jokes are getting through to the listeners. Speaking of very, very long running jokes, Ben, do you remember washing the dogs? Yeah, just wanted to let you know my wife's washed the dogs again. It smells lovely
today.
Yeah, today. Yeah, she's washed the dogs. It smells great. Anyway, moving on.
Alistair, how many more players do you think we will need? I would say 3 wingers. Oh, no, sorry. I would say 3 wingers and another backup striker. I think it's important we don't get carried away. If we bring in too many, you run the risk of blocking the pathway or losing that team spirit. Yeah, I mean, it is a good question. I personally, off the top of my head, I'd say more than 3. What are you saying, gents?
Okay, so like I don't really mind about the total number so I'm just going to throw the question out with the bathwater. I want to see, just if we're thinking about signings that the club are going to make, I want to see the club part with money for one signing, because I want to see I know there's money involved in loan deals. Don't get me wrong. Like I know like they pay clubs for the loan fee or whatever.
You mean a cold hard transfer fee?
I want to see a cold hard transfer. I want to see what makes this recruitment team, with Joe Jacobson, at the front of it now, or top of director of football or whatever. I want to see what makes the club and this front office part with money. Basically, that's my the thing I want to see the most, I guess, because that will kind of tell us. I think that will just give us a little bit more info about what the transfer strategy overall might be, and then thinking about how many players. I mean, yeah, what 3 to 4 maybe sounds right, but I want to see one guy who's going into the starting lineup that we purchase with funds. That's what I'd like to see.
Ross has been very coy with the number that he actually wants to bring in. I'm going to go with a very specific number 7, which I know seems like a lot, but if you're going to properly build out the squad and you're going to properly get your depth as well, I do think we need another centre-back for sure to give us another option there, as I said earlier. I would like a proper number 6 who can cover for Lewis Wing, because obviously Michael Craig's gone. Yep. We need somebody who is specialising there. You can't put Savage there, you can't put Elliott there, you can't put Nibs there. Spencer is good in the long run, but I don't want to be relying on him in the league. So definitely
too early, isn't it? Too early for that.
Exactly. I would like another option at 8, given that in the back half of last season, when we didn't have Ben Elliott, all of a sudden our options higher up the pitch in midfield just looked very, very thin, and we had to play Savage and Nibs constantly. I'm not saying bring in another first team player, because you don't really want to kind of block Ben Elliott, but if we could get somebody else who is basically like Ben Elliott from 2 seasons ago, maybe a Premier League player who's quite young and he's making his way in the game, and we can give him a new home in a 3-year contract kind of thing, that would be ideal, just to give us some more numbers and a bit more creativity and depth. Another 2 strikers, ideally, definitely need a backup there for Marco Mane, just to give us another option, and ideally a third, maybe not. If Basil Tuma does well, as I mentioned earlier, then he could potentially be that third striker. Kelvin could be that other striker as well. And then a couple of wingers as well, because last season we were just so short on quality out wide, and getting a proper established first choice right winger and first choice left winger, whether Kelvin signs or not, getting those players, and we actually have some quality and some proper service for Marco Barney and whoever else comes in as a striker.
Yeah, I had between 5 and 6. So I had 2 strikers, another centre back, 2 wingers, and like you, someone to bulk up midfield. So yeah, between 5 and 6 players, I think we need for sure. I think 3's far too conservative, given that if we went out and signed another 3 strikers, I don't think people would quibble over that really.
But think about the funds. That's what I want to distribute. That I want to. Actually, I don't want to distribute them. Spend them all. Piss it up a tree on one player.
Why a tree? Why not a wall?
Well, or the whichever stand it is that you say. Oh no, wait, I won't say that. That would be degrading Eamon Dolan's memory, and that's a horrible thing to say. So, anyway, moving on.
I think, yeah, I am concerned about the strikers at the moment. 100%, I'm concerned about how little we don't have there. I think Kelvin comes back in. I'm really putting out there in the universe that he comes back to us and re-signs. I think 3 is far too much. But then again, what have we got? Maybe 1 or 2 loan spaces left. I don't know how many. There's a cap, isn't there?
2, I think. I think it's 5 total that you can have in a matchday squad. And just to jump in a little bit opportunistically, another thing to consider with our squad is that we have a lot of players in the squad who were injured quite heavily last season. Yeah. John Ryan and John Clark as well as our fullback depth. Yeardom is probably a little bit injury prone. Kelvin Abraford definitely is. Long Kelvin missed quite a lot last season too. Ben Elliott. And I think part of the reason that I'm so keen on depth, just to really kind of hammer home this same point, I could see quite easily us having an injury crisis and a lot of that squad numbers that we have at the minute on paper just folding. Then all of a sudden the squad looks a lot thinner, a lot narrower. Yeah. And you might as well just bring in some depth now. It doesn't have to be first team players, but those players who can kind of come in, be your depth in the first year and then be more of a first team player in the next year or in the year after that. If we can do some long-term planning as opposed to just bringing in players on 1-year deals and loans, then that'd be ideal.
Final one for the mailbag. Was year? Question mark. At good. Podcast Sport. I think that's how you say it. Anyway, all right. My son and I are from New Zealand and joined the Ding 6 months ago prior to the takeover. Amazing learning the club's history. We chose Reading FC because my son is new to football and didn't want to bandwagon a Man City type team, plus because of Bindon. My question, we got last year's shirts, Bindon, me, and Ian Bitterman, my son. If we buy the new kit, it looks interesting. Who should we get this time? That's the first question. So who goes on the back of the shirt for you guys? Also, if we make it to the UK next year, where is the best spot in the ground if we can get to a game to soak up the OG fans? Spicy question. Spicy. I didn't say it like that last week, did I? Ooh,
there we go. Perfect.
Who's on the back of your shirt, Ross? You love a shirt with a name on it.
I do love a shirt with a name on it, and Michael Craig's gone, and he was who I was going to do next year, so that's a shame. Probably Wing or Savage. I think Savage is a cool name, and you have that on the back of your shirt. That kind of works for non-Reading purposes as well. But Wing is just such a good player. It's good to have commemorated. My wife has Wing on her purple turtle shirt. So yeah, I think commemorate him. He's scored some absolute bangers.
Sim?
I'm not usually a kind of name on the back of the shirt guy. Personally, I'm more of a plain guy, to be quite honest.
Is that because you're an adult?
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm sitting here in my Grealish shirt. Don't mind me.
He might be the next one through the door if we got this special relationship with Man City. I'll tell you.
Hey, good point. Yeah, we're left winger.
Yeah.
But if I absolutely have to have a name on the back of my shirt, I'm going to try and edge my bets a little bit, and I'm going to go with O'Connor because I'm trying to think who are we going to love a year or two down the line? The loan players, we're going to love them, and then they're going to go off after 12 months. Harvey Nibbs, I might say, but he's in the last year of his contract. Savage is, 2 years away? Could see both of them leaving. O'Connor, I can see being the kind of player that puts in those proper classic performances that fans love, really dominating at the back, score some headers as well, maybe a couple of last-minute winners from a corner or a free kick, something like that. And I can imagine, I think the stocks for O'Connor as a popular name on the shirt are liable to go quite high this season.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's going to be a slow burner on the back of the shirts, I think, to be honest. It's only one player for me, Savage, isn't it? No questions asked.
Do you like Charlie Savage? I didn't know you didn't know.
A little bit, just a small bit.
Well, what we were talking about earlier with Irish bias with strikers, it's the Welsh bias as well, isn't it?
Well, I know. We listen.
Well established on this pod. Don't worry about that. He won't let me get out from under it, even when he's wearing a freaking Netherlands shirt today. You traitor.
Yeah. I was talking about Reading being a joke of an organisation a couple of years ago, but podcast being a joke of an organisation with this geezer hosting it.
Horrendous.
No comment.
It's amazing that people listen to this tripe, but they do. They do. And the second question was, if we make it to the UK next year, where's the best spot in the ground if we can get to a game to soak up the OG fans? I mean, that's a controversial one.
That is controversial, isn't it? That's the spicy one.
That is a spicy one. I'm obviously going to say the Dolan, but there were times last season when it was literally, as I said repeatedly, the only person in my block. I mean, what really brought it home, like you guys won't know this, but as you get older, you start to lose hair. And you get those security cameras that do the back of the head.
And we've noticed, like, the angle of the camera, we've noticed.
I know, yeah, and I noticed it the other day, and I was like, I've probably got maybe 10 left in me. Like 10 haircuts. The point of this is that when I see photos that are mainly from Sim of the Dolan on those very, very sparse days, shall we say, just makes me really sad because I'm like, there's literally no one in. Like, if you put everyone together, you might fill a block and a half, maybe.
Yeah.
So there is nothing better than an absolutely rocking Dolan. Like, you think about it, the Premier League days with the North Stand and the way it was, like, it was unreal. But in terms of OG fans, I mean, atmosphere-wise, you'd have to go, what, Upper West?
I always sit if it helps at all. I always sit, I think, on the East Stand is the one that's all just one stand. It's not got like the upper and the lower. Yeah. So I always sit sort of towards the away fans, but still like pretty close to the halfway line in the East End. And then like I like to sit about 10 rows down. That's partially because in America, getting seats like in the middle of the field is very expensive. So when we're in England, we do it because it costs the same as getting a seat, much further away. But I do also think that gives you I like that because it gives you a nice view of like the players coming out of the tunnel, and then you can also hear the fans on your left side, and then you got a good seat to watch the arguments between the teenagers, in the away section versus our teenagers, opposite them. So it's always funny.
There's no bad view in the house at the SCL.
No,
it's a very quality, very modern stadium, and whether you're in the away end or you're upper west or wherever, you have a very good view of the pitch. So if you want a good view of the pitch, you go basically where you want. But my personal preference is a bit like Ross, kind of halfway down the East Stand, kind of most of the way up. So you got as kind of good of a TV-esque view of the pitch as you can do.
Yeah, it's a good spot, actually. So it is a good spot.
Yeah. And the thing is, when we have a good atmosphere, it does kind of extend down the East Stand quite well. If it gets all the way down to the Dolan, then we know it's a really good atmosphere because you don't never make any noise. But the thing is, when we do have a good atmosphere, it's one of those where the whole stadium gets involved. And I know people like to kind of talk about the atmosphere in Club 1871. Is it good? Is it quiet on a week? Whatever. But when we have a good atmosphere, it's a collective thing. And we even get the posh people over in the West Stand joining in as well.
Historically, East Stand, as the Sir John as it is now, has always been the place to be. I think, if you want a bit of noise or whatever, and I know it's moved around because the away fans change and everything else, but there's always been something about the East Stand for me that I've gone, yeah, actually that's
We like walking around to the East End too, because it makes you walk through the throng of fans as well as you sort of, when you enter the stadium, and that's kind of just fun to soak up the atmosphere a little bit before the game. Like the Purple Turtle stage is around the back by the East End.
Yeah, it's at the back. The fan zone's there. Like the concourse is really good on the East End as well. So
this is me sticking the boot in on the guy on Twitter who said that I don't know anything about Reading or whatever, or the actual stadium. I can't go to games because I'm stuck out here, I do know my way around the stadium, sort of.
Listen, look, if you do go to a game and you come from New Zealand, you watch a game, let us know. It'd be really, really good. We love hearing stories about people coming over from overseas and watch the game. And if you've had, this season, we've had a number of people say, where shall I sit? And we end up giving the wrong advice to people coming to the wrong games. But, always appreciate those kind of questions. And hopefully you can get over for a game and, experience it in full. That'd be really good. We're going to move very, very quickly to the recap. Jill's away, so we're going to do that very, very briefly to wrap up episode 423 and send you all on your way. So we'll be back after this very short break. Right. Final part of the pod, preview, Gillingham away. Ross, you can add Gillingham to a place I don't like.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, give me a few minutes then. I'll get that added into the database.
As a general rule, I don't really like Kent as a county.
Okay. I'm gonna, because you're not posh, or because what's the reason for disliking Kent? This is more than I don't know anything about Gillingham or their team, so this is we'll talk about Ben's opinions of Kent.
What's Gillingham done to hurt you, Ben?
Yeah.
Have you been to Gillingham?
No, I haven't. But I've been to Kent, and Kent is quite nice actually.
Yeah. It's all this, Garden of England nonsense. Oh, just because you buy the sea, grow up.
Yeah.
So's Bournemouth.
That's true, actually. And Bournemouth is very much not the Garden of England. So,
exactly.
yeah.
I'm looking forward to it, actually. Like, we don't get too many opportunities to go to a completely new part of the country for a league game. It's always Lancashire. It's always the Northwest, South Wales quite often, South Yorkshire, wherever. Can't remember the last time we played in... I don't think I've ever seen us play a game in Kent, actually. So yeah.
There you
Should
go.
be good fun. Yeah.
They'll be exhausted because they've got a local derby against Dover Athletic tonight. So, we've got a chance of picking up at least 3 points from that game on Saturday, hopefully. You never know.
It is actually streaming this time, so I might be able to watch some of it. Which
is it?
So
it's
hopefully, I think it is streaming this one. So unfortunately, couldn't watch the Hungerford Town one, but I'm hungering for some Gillingham football. I guess I'm going to go.
I mean, the big news is that they've got a return of the match day program. Everyone knows how much I love a program, right?
Yeah.
They're literally bringing it back physically in physical form with actual paper and possibly staples.
I do like that.
Yeah, it's coming back. It's coming back.
That's good to know.
I'm going to do that as well, to be fair, on Saturday. So
you're going to get it? Oh yeah,
I didn't get it on Saturday, the Hungerford one. But look, Hungerford can do it and Gillingham can do it. So
why can't we?
Yeah, and look, I know it's one of those where it's a big kind of resource drain as well. Just as much as the finances, it's somebody's got to do it, and it does take a long time to make something like that. But it's a shame that it's gone, and it'd be lovely if you could come back. Kind of selfishly, because we did have a column back in it when it was running a few years ago, but. Yeah, if we can get it back, possibly, then it'd be good fun.
It would be great.
It would be great, yeah. From the world of minor league baseball, I bought a program I went to Sea Dogs game a couple of weeks ago, and I bought a program there, and it's actually for like the whole season, which is kind of interesting. So like they do updated versions through the season. No, wait. They do like updated versions through the season, but they just do one that can stand for the whole season if you go to one game, which I just think is kind of interesting because like a lot of local people will go to one game every year. So, you just get a little thing commemorating your time. I just think it's quite interesting.
It just sounds like a sport version of the National Trust Handbook, and that's just nonsense.
A little bit like a Beano annual, but for a sports team for sure. So maybe not.
That's definitely what they were thinking when they came out with it originally.
They were definitely thinking of the Beano. I just want you to know, as Ben drops off the call again, that I'm starting a new Ben's terrible places of the UK list for 25, 26. there's no use keeping the same list from last year. We're aware of where Ben doesn't like from League One season 24-25. So now we'll start a new list, and it's starting with Gillingham. So good weekend. Good start for Ben.
Well, listen, if you're going down, hopefully, going down today, hopefully you can see some new signings. You would imagine they'd probably start to feature now. I say we're running out of games. That's not quite right, but it's quite frightening that what are we now? Yeah, less than a month away. We're going to be away to Lincoln City in the real version of football. So it's going to be interesting. Reminder, of course, that it's the training ground visit this week, full on Sunday for a lot of people that are doing that. I think the fast tour is like 7:30 or something.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
like really early.
About 7:30 in the morning. So anybody who's got themselves booked onto that, then like fair play to you for your commitment.
I was going to say fair play. That's eager.
Yeah. Buses run from the stadium all the way through. I think that's the only way you can get there physically. So I think you have to go to the stadium and get a bus in. All free, part of the season ticket package of people that renewed or brought by I think it was the 6th of June. I think that was the date for that. So I think tickets are still available, maybe. I'm not sure. You might have to check the website. But if you're going to that, have a good one. Sim, it's been absolutely average having you on this pod. Hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been just about acceptable putting up with your presence for an hour and 20 minutes or so. So yeah, see you in another year or so.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, we'll see you in a year. Ross, have a lovely week.
Thank you very much. Imagine how much we're going to talk when the games actually start up again.
Crazy. We will be back, probably back at some point next week. Hopefully new signings, hopefully a bit more. Hopefully we'll have a kit to discuss. We'll obviously have the Gillingham review. We can talk about that. It is being streamed, so check out that on the website and see where you can watch that game. Have a lovely week, everybody. Thank you for listening to episode 423 of the Tilehurst End podcast. Come on, you Oz.